Hey guys, welcome back to the Friday Vlog, where we discuss activity that goes on here with the BuzWeaver channel. That includes things like current events, headlines that are in the news, pop culture, social media, technology, and items of interest that come up during the week that allow us to have a little bit of a dialogue. I want to thank all of you on Rumble, BitChute, and Odyssey for your continued support, and of course, all you dedicated supporters here on YouTube. Thank you to all of you for your continued support.
We start things off from Reuters. U.S. warns Chinese firms against helping Russia against potential Ukraine sanctions. I find this incredibly ironic and wanted to point out that I really hope that Joe Biden doesn't decide to go toe-to-toe with Xi, because we know what happens when he goes toe-to-toe with Vladimir Putin, or I should say just what he might do going toe-to-toe with our adversaries. So from Town Hall, Poland's move on MiGs pretty much shows that Europe doesn't really trust Biden with anything. Of course, everyone in the world, as well as our adversaries, can see the terrible condition and situation that the United States is currently in, and of course they were all watching the debacle and deadly exit of Afghanistan. Joe Biden declared that America was back when he got elected. There was no underlying reason for the declaration other than I'm a Democrat and I'm different. The world ate it up. The liberals ate it up. Everyone thought the norms, which many have erroneously thought were not followed, would return. The adults were back in charge. That all fell apart in less than a year. That's right, it absolutely did. Afghanistan showed what many of us already knew about Joe Biden and this administration. They're appalling at foreign policy. They're appalling at many different things. Not only that, they shut down our own production when we were succeeding and achieving and getting that very coveted independence, which we were able to do. I showed a chart the other day in my video showing how we were becoming more independent. And of course, we don't have the numbers beyond 21 right now, but I showed you how we were actually getting independence while we were under President Trump. But of course, it did start out around 2014 and worked its way into the Trump administration, where we were really succeeding and doing well. And of course, all that changed when Joe Biden became president. Now, shifting gears a bit to what's currently happening, I just wanted to mention, if you guys do want to see the other side, as it were, if you want to kind of, curate, collate, and then disseminate and aggregate your news, I would say you can go over to RT on Odyssey and kind of see what the Russian media is saying, say, versus what the Western European and EU, UK, all those countries are saying. So just to kind of give you guys a sense of diversity, because I'm looking at all the news at different angles. So when I go to mention these particular incidents here, I'm saying it from a standpoint of observation, objectivity, and detail. So what I want to say or ask you guys as a question is, does it really look like Russia is failing? I mean, they're having their setbacks, they're having their difficulties, they're having their challenges, just like the United States did in Afghanistan. But with the backing of the Western media, or you could say even European and UK media, things are kind of, they're trying to spin things in a way to make it look like Russia is falling apart. And this could be part of the, as we have mentioned before, the fourth and fifth generational warfare, as well as just a way to demoralize Russia, because of course you want to ensure that for example, if the Russians do feel demoralized, or if the troops and so forth, the military feel demoralized, that will, of course, detract them and distract them. But as we can see here from the Daily Mail, Putin begins to move on Kiev. Russian tank columns is repelled and another top commander eliminated in devastating ambush as Moscow's forces move within a few miles of capital outskirts. AIM fears Mariupol bombing are a sign of what's to come. So here we see that the Western media isn't able to hold back what's actually happening entirely. In other words, there's only so much spin, there's only so much positivity that they can bring to this. Now, again, I'm saying this from a position of observation and detail, not necessarily picking the side of saying, well, yeah, the Western media's got it completely, absolutely right, and we should be following what they're saying, because it really does look like Russia is making their moves. They've had 8 years to plan, or maybe more. We're seeing that they're getting support from China. Now, China's sitting back and watching and seeing what's going on, of course, because they don't want to be on the losing side, because, of course, they want to make sure that they can bolster their strength and appear strong as well, and not so much as having helped the Russians. Now, of course, they'll find their own spin to get out of it. But The battle for Kiev is underway as Russian tanks push to within just a few miles of the city's outskirts, analysts and witnesses have said, though initial assaults to the west and east of the capital were repelled as Vladimir Putin's forces face a long and bloody campaign to try and take the capital. So it's not going to be easy. I think everyone can agree that it's not going to be easy to take a city. Now, the thing about it is that, of course, you know, they've got all these choke points, as you can see here. So the tanks are coming in this particular area, so it's a bit of a choke point. So the people who live in Kiev know their city. They know their choke points. They know where Russia has to come in. So they're able to, you know, position themselves in a way to defend the city. Because even if you're a small country, even against overwhelming odds, as we saw in the Middle East, you can still hold back huge, gigantic forces. Now, I would have to say that in a way, Russia is exercising levels of restraint because they could just go full hardcore if they wanted to and just start shelling and bombing and just wiping everyone out. But of course, the thing here I think that people are missing, or the Western media is missing, is that Russia, if they're going to be taking this country, if they're going to be trying to take over and become, I guess, the leaders or put in their own puppet government, they need the people there to be able to function. They need the people there to be able to run the cities. They need to be able to have the infrastructure and everything that they need to be able to have a city. Because, I mean, they could just go scorched earth, right, and just completely wipe everything out. But, of course, with Geneva Conventions and international laws and this, that, and the other, when you fight a war, of course, it's not a gentleman war anymore. We're not in I mean, there might have been an age where a gentleman's war was appropriate, but we're living in a different time now. And I think Russia is exercising some level of restraint. The fact that they're actually harming a lot of people is not particularly good. I'm not defending Russia by saying, well, I'm glad they're, you know, considering humanitarian aid and other things like that. No, I think what Russia is doing is basically coming in and just taking over a country, which is exactly what he's doing. This is what, this is what the hyperbole and the analogies and the insults about Trump was too, or back in the day when they were saying that, you know, the United States was an imperialist nation, this, that, and the other, and we just wanted land and oil and everything else. Now, if you want to make that argument about the Middle East, that's a whole other conversation. But what we're seeing here in Ukraine is a totally different situation. And the guys, or the people there, the Ukrainians there in Kiev, probably do have a lot of their positions ready for anyone coming in because, of course, they know their city, they know their situation. So obviously, we can see here they can have areas cut off, and they can go after the columns. They can go after whatever's moving in. Now, of course, we know that the president of Kiev, or the president of Ukraine, that would be Zelensky, is, of course, still pleading with the United States and NATO and others for assistance. And, of course, there is not going to be a no-fly zone because then that would have to be enforced by NATO. And then if NATO gets involved, then obviously that's going to escalate things. And maybe in a way that's why Putin is holding the hand that he is, because he knows exactly what he has when it comes to his position and what he can do. So we see here also from the Daily Mail, we will defend every inch of NATO. Kamala issues warning to Putin from Poland, and U.S. troops fire Stinger missiles and war games in Estonia alongside 13,000 troops from 13 countries. AIM fears Eastern Europe could be Russia's next target. So we're seeing here a little bit of saber rattling from NATO, as well as a little bit of chest pumping from the United States. Now, I saw a little clip from Kamala Harris there where she couldn't figure out where she was, but, you know, maybe she was tired, maybe she was sleepy. The time change is about 7 hours, so maybe she didn't get a whole lot of sleep and so forth, but she did look kind of weak. She didn't look very, I was going to say presidential, but she didn't look very vice presidential either. She's just kind of there in her cackling and so forth. But I think she did the best she could under the circumstances, but there isn't anything about what she's doing that looks genuine or convincing to anybody. And as you can see here, you can see some of the different individuals as U.S. troops here prepare to fire Stinger missiles. Stingers are fine. I personally like javelins. And here's Kamala Harris. I'm going to do a little bit of a clip that I'm going to do as a short, so you guys can check that out a little bit later here on the channel. And then, of course, here they are engaged in war games. Those are such beautiful images, isn't it? In a beautiful area of the world, in these beautiful countries, and we're at war again. It's just sad to see it. And here they are kind of doing some preparations. And the previous map, as we saw earlier, where the Russians are surrounding the city. And they are determined to take that city. So he could shell it. send in artillery. He could airstrike it, but right now he could just send in the artillery or what he's doing with his tanks. I find it kind of interesting because Russia is known for its tank warfare, but of course you have to get into a city in a particular way, and as we saw from the previous images and here, that of course they are set up and ready to take on the Russians if need be. And that's what I have for you guys on this Friday.
All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it up for this Friday vlog. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the comments. And of course, below this video, you can find the various social media sites that I belong to, so follow me there for daily posts. And of course, all of you here on YouTube, that would be the channel icon appearing right there on the screen that you can click on to subscribe, as well as to decide if you want notifications to let you know when there's content here on the channel. And I'll see all you guys right there behind that camera next week.